to everyone. We can now start this session. It is 4:03 p.m. Geneva time. My name is Alan Wittig from the BRS Secretariat. I'd like to welcome everyone to this webinar briefing on the outcomes of the 16th meeting of the POPs Review Committee, the POPRC 16. I hope you are all well and keeping safe. I will start by providing this briefing on the outcomes of POPRC 16, and then you will have the opportunity after this briefing to ask questions or make comments also in the chat if you prefer. The session will last a maximum of up to 1 hour. The briefing will be recorded and made available on the website, on the meeting website after this session. While I provide the briefing, I kindly ask you to please mute your microphones or keep them muted and keep your cameras switched off. This will help the quality of the sound. Okay, so the 16th meeting of the POPs Review Committee, POPRC 16, was held from 11th to 16 January 2021. It was held online due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic crisis. The meeting was preceded by pre-meetings that were held from 1 to 3 December 2020, also held online for the same reasons. The interim chair of the committee was Mr. Peter Dawson from New Zealand. In terms of participation to the meeting, the participation was very high, higher than past meetings. There were 182 participants, of which 29 were members of the committee and 153 were observers. 2 members of the committee were unable to join the meeting. The meeting adopted 5 decisions in total on the chemicals or issues listed on the screen, and I'll get into those in a bit more detail in the coming slides. The committee also agreed on the work plan of the intersessional working groups to work between the 16th meeting and the 17th meeting of the committee. A letter was sent to all parties and observers on 18 January, which was a follow-up letter to the meeting, which contained a number of invitations for information or comments on various products. And again, I'll get back to that in a minute. You may find more further information on all of these aspects linked to the meeting on the meeting website on the on the screen. So let's look first at the first chemical that was under review by the POPRC 16. The chemical name is Dicloram Plus. This was a chemical that was proposed for listing in the Stockholm Convention by Norway. The committee was considering this chemical at its second review stage. So it had already been discussed in terms of the actual proposal and screening criteria of the Annex D to the convention at its previous meeting. And so Dicloram Plus is a flame retardant, which has been in use since the 1960s in a variety of applications, such as electrical wire and cable coatings, plastic roof materials, connectors in TV and computer monitors, and others as specified on the slide. So for this chemical, I'd like to add that the naming of the chemical was simplified, and this was the decision by POPRC 16. It used to be named Dicron Plus and its anti-isomer and syn isomer, and at POPRC 16, in order to simplify the title of the chemical, they agreed to call it just Dicron Plus, because actually the CAS number for this chemical also includes the these isomers. So the committee was considering a draft risk profile for this chemical, which had been prepared during the intersessional period between POPRC 15 and POPRC 16 by the intersessional working group that was established for this purpose. And while considering this risk profile, the committee was unable to reach agreement that the information on adverse effects was sufficient to reach a conclusion, and it therefore deferred the decision on the risk profile for Dicron Plus to POPRC 17, and it established a intersessional working group to further revise the draft risk profile on the basis of information document 19. So information document 19, which is available on the meeting website, contains the draft risk profile as amended during the POPRC 16 meeting. The committee also invited parties and observers to submit information relating to the adverse effects on Dicron Plus before March 2021. In the letter that was sent on 18 January, as I was referring to before, there is a form for providing this information that was attached to that letter. So linked to this process, the intersessional working group, and first the actual chair of the group and lead drafter will take into account the comments received from parties and observers on these adverse effects, and if any comments also provided on the draft risk profile, which is contained in Inf 19, and will work on a further revision of this draft risk profile, which will be then brought forward for consideration by POPRC 17 at its next meeting. The committee also considered a second chemical in its review, which is methoxychlor. This chemical was proposed by the European Union for listing in the Stockholm Convention. Methoxychlor is an organochlorine pesticide, which was originally developed as a replacement for DDT, which has been used as an insecticide combating a wide range of pests. So actually methoxychlor was at the same review stage as the previous chemical. So the committee actually reviewed the draft risk profile for this chemical, which had been prepared during the intersessional period between POPRC 15 and POPRC 16. POPRC 16 was able to finalize and adopt the risk profile on methoxychlor. The risk profile itself, as adopted by the committee, can be found and is available in document 9 add 1, which is on the meeting website, currently as advanced English version, and it's currently being translated into the 6 UN languages, and will be the languages will be made available, posted on the website when they become available. The committee also decided that methoxychlor is likely as a result of its long-range environmental transport to lead to significant adverse human health and environmental effects, such as global action is warranted, meaning that the committee has considered this chemical as a POP. The committee also established an intersessional working group to prepare the draft risk management evaluation, which will include information on analysis of possible control measures and other information such as on the assessment of socioeconomic information of these measures for this chemical. This will bring the chemical to the next review stage and will be considered by POPRC 17 at its next meeting. The committee also invited parties and observers to submit information on these socioeconomic consideration as specified in the Annex F to the Convention before 1st of March 2021. The third chemical being reviewed or under review by POPRC 16 was the chemical called UV328. It was considering for the first time this chemical. It was proposed by Switzerland for a listing under the Stockholm Convention. UV328 is a UV absorber used in many products such as transparent plastics, coatings, personal care products, and as additive in printing ink in food contact materials. So in screening and reviewing this proposal against the screening criteria of Annex D, the committee decided that the proposal did fulfill the screening criteria set out in the Annex D to the Convention, and it established an intersessional working group to review the proposal further and to prepare a draft risk profile for this chemical. And this would mean it'll bring this chemical to the next review stage by POPRC 17. It also invited parties and observers to submit the Annex E to the Convention information before 1st of March 2021. So the committee, in addition to reviewing these chemicals, these proposals for a listing of chemicals in the convention, the committee also considered a number of other items which were mandated by the Stockholm COP to review specific exemptions for a number of chemicals already listed in the Stockholm Convention. And the first is on the review of information related to the specific exemptions for deca-bromodiphenyl ether and short-chain chlorinated paraffins. So both these chemicals were listed or have been listed by Stockholm COP 8 in 2017 in Annex A with specific exemptions. And Stockholm COP 8 also adopted two related decisions in decisions 8/13 and 8/14, which established a process for the review of the periodic review of the information related to the specific exemptions on these chemicals. And in line with this established process, the committee, POPRC 16, completed the review of the information related to specific exemptions of these chemicals and decided to submit the reports on these reviews to Stockholm COP 10. And you may find these reports as the outcomes of the POPRC 16 in information document 17 and 18, which are currently posted on the convention website. The committee also requested the secretary to prepare a draft decision reflecting the recommendations of the committee contained in those reports for consideration by COP 10. So the Secretariat will be putting forward a draft decision for COP 10 to consider that contains the recommendations from the committee on the review of these chemicals. Now turning to the item on the indicative list of substances covered by the listing of PFOA, its salts, and PFOA related compounds. So these chemicals were listed by the previous Stockholm COP 9 in 2019 in Annex A with specific exemptions. Stockholm COP 9 also adopted a related decision, it's in decision 9/13, on the further actions linked to these listings. And in the section 3 of this decision 9/13, the COP took note of an indicative list of substances that had been prepared by POPRC 13 and is found in document INF 6 Add 1. And the COP also invited parties and others to provide further information regarding the identification of the substances covered by this listing. And it also requested the Secretary to compile in consultation with the POPs Review Committee, information that was submitted on these indicative lists, and to establish an indicative list of PFOA-related substances or compounds, and to make this indicative list available on the website and updated periodically. So in line with that process established in or mandate provided by the Stockholm Convention in this decision 913, the POPRC 16 reviewed this compilation of information submitted by parties and others, and the draft indicative list of substances covered by the listing of these chemicals. And this list was contained in information document 12. And in conclusion, it adopted the POPRC 16 adopted a decision on this matter, setting a process whereby it invited members, parties, and observers to submit comments on the draft updated indicative list before the 28th February 2021 on the basis of the list which is contained in the Annex 2 to Information Document 12. It requested the Secretary to prepare the further revised draft indicative list, taking into account the comments submitted. And then the Secretary will then recirculate this revised draft indicative list to all parties and observers who are invited to submit comments on the further revised draft indicative list before 30 April 2021. So it's really a two-step commenting period for this particular matter. Then the Secretariat, in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of the Committee, will update the indicative list and make it available on the Convention website, and this will be done in advance of the Stockholm COP10 for its consideration. Turning to the evaluation of and review of brominated diphenyl ethers. So these chemicals were listed in Annex A at the Stockholm COP4 in 2009. In 2013, the Stockholm COP6 adopted a process for the periodic evaluation of and review of these chemicals. And this process is set out in the decision SC 6/3. And the review of these chemicals is to take place according to this process every other COP. And the next review is to take place at the Stockholm COP10. So in line with this established process, the POPRC 16 reviewed and provided comments on a draft report on the evaluation of brominated diphenyl ethers, which was prepared by the Secretariat. And the Secretariat will now revise this report, taking into account the comments provided during the meeting, and will submit it to Stockholm COP10 for its consideration. Now turning to the follow-up to the POPRC 16. So the meeting report, which is contained in document 9, is now available on the convention, on the meeting website, on the convention website. It's available as an English advanced version and is currently being translated into the 6 UN languages. These translations will be posted on the website as soon as they become available. I mentioned previously the letter that was sent out on 18 January 2021, earlier this year, containing a number of calls for information and comments on the various products as the outcomes of the POPRC 16. And the deadlines for this information and for providing this information or comments are grouped according to 2 main deadlines. The first is the 1st of March, where additional information is invited relating to the adverse effects of Dicron Plus. Information is also invited for the risk management evaluation for methoxyclaw. So this is the information as contained in Annex F to the Convention. and information relating to the draft risk profile that will be developed intercessionally on UV 328 based on the information contained in Annex E to the Convention. The other main deadline is 28th of February, and as I just mentioned earlier, this is for the initial deadline for submitting comments on the draft indicative list of substances covered by the listing of PFOA, its salts, and PFOA related compounds based on the information contained in document INF 12. The tentative dates and venue for POPRC 617 have been set from 27 September to 1st of October 2021 in Rome. That will be held back-to-back with the Rotterdam Convention Chemical Review Committee 17th meeting. As you can imagine, there are some uncertainties linked to the organization of this meeting in Rome due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The situation will be assessed and reviewed in the coming months by the Secretariat in consultation with the Bureau of the Committee in order to take a final decision on the holding of this meeting and the date and format sufficiently in advance of the meetings, and all participants, parties, and observers will be informed of the outcomes of this assessment when that has been completed. This completes my briefing. Thank you very much for your attention. As I was mentioning before, you may find more information on the meeting and the related products on the convention website. You may now raise any questions. You can provide comments. To do so, you may either raise your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon,